and welcome to Season 2 of Super Pros Bros. I'm Player 1 Ike, and with me, as always, is...
Player 2, Eli, and Merloff. Doing this podcast is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify.
I did not, Brosidon. Are those the same places they could...
Like,
comment?
share,
And subscribe?
yeah, it sure is.
Holy macaroni and cheese. Well, before we get into our topic of the week, what's been going on with you this last week?
General stressors. But I'm trying to pretend that everything is okay. Legal confrontations are awkward.
Yeah.
It's been interesting reading through some legal documents and helping touch up draft letters. Anyways, yeah, so much fun.
Sounds like the worst kind of writing.
It's not super fun. Most of it's that I've been helping.
Would you say that the pros in there aren't that super?
Get out. I say most have been helping with like touching up kind of Artemis's testimony for the demand letter and stuff. Not the actual like legal writing. I trust the lawyer to actually do their own legal writing.
I believe that is very wise.
Yeah, it's like why people hire them, it turns out. But otherwise, I've been getting myself excited, and the hype train is fully on the rails for Path of Exile's next league to come out next week. I will surely lose too many hours to that game.
No, not lose, spend.
That is one narrative. Yeah, and just been reading a fair amount since I'm in this weird spot where I don't have a big game eating my time since I stopped playing WoW and I refused to get into the new expansion. So, which has probably been better for me overall. WoW is a parasite. It sucks your blood. Yeah, that's kind of what's been going on in my side of the world. What about you? What's going on?
Still trying to be a teacher and flailing at it. So that's fun. If I haven't I think I talked about that last week, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Or the last time, rather. I guess it wasn't technically last week. But, working on that, trying to get better while not, losing my mind. It's a tricky request. Yeah, balancing act to be sure. Feel very much like I'm balancing on a stool with only two legs, with a certain kind of climbing gear around my neck.
I don't know if that's climbing gear.
Hey man, everything's climbing gear if you want it to be. Just to varying effects. But let's see. Doing that, beginning to read Save the Cat, which is my roommate who is also a writer in the making. Or I guess we're all just writers, so he's also an aspiring Hollywood screenwriter. I guess maybe it's a little less pedantic way to put it.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know about this for you, but I've been thinking of the idea and talking with so many people that we are what we choose to think we are, and so the more we shortcut our kind of like take away the leg from ourselves by saying, well, I'm not this yet because of why. It's like, well, you are, you just haven't been I'm not a writer because I haven't been published. No, you're a writer who hasn't been published. I'm a screenwriter who hasn't, had his movie put on the screen yet. It changes the way you think about yourself. And so I'm very much trying to actualize that in the way I talk about myself and others. Sure. But Save the Cat's a very fun book on screenwriting. Its pacing is really good and very much meant for those who have some difficulty reading, such as myself, partially because of lack of practice and partially because after watching a video last night, I think there's a small chance I might actually have ADHD. It was really weird as watching another YouTuber who, I think it's Ice Cream Sandwich. That's the channel. Um, and I think that's who it is. Let me see. Yeah, Ice Cream Sandwich. Great channel. A lot of fun. Love his animation style. It's very frenetic and, just kind of goofy loosey. But he was talking about how um, he went into a doctor and, they told him after a bunch of tests, they diagnosed him with ADHD. Also, apparently ADD doesn't exist anymore. It's all lumped into varieties of ADHD, which is all right, whatever. Fun, random fact. But in his talking about the signs that he had that were showcases that he had them, literally all 12 are things I do. It's like checking the door multiple times, pacing and talking to yourself, like having a bunch of these compulsions. And I'm not diagnosing myself, but it's something that I'm looking into seeing a doctor about, because it's like, that would make a lot of sense. And one of the difficulties is like rereading the same line and trying to like ingest it, because you're unable to do it on like the first couple passes. And it's like, I've had that problem a lot, like a lot, to where if the book is not like insanely engaging, which is why I enjoy fiction, especially high fantasy with really good world building and very good and largely dialogue based. Like, I got lost every time I tried. Like, my mom had to help me read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. She basically read an overwhelming part of them to me. And that's the way I got them, because I couldn't... Parsing Tolkien's a bitch. Parsing a Tolkien with what I'm thinking I might have in ADHD is... You're asking to climb up fucking Everest backwards with no snowshoes. It's fucking... You're asking a lot of that person. So, but that's something I'm interested in when my jobs, and when I get the health insurance for my occupation, I definitely want to try and get in and have it looked at.
For sure.
But, a friend of mine who, a friend of mine won a Magic tournament the other day, and we went out and had dinner. So if I'm a little sluggish today, you'll have to forgive me, because we ate what is called the Colby Gin, I think is what it's technically called. But when we went there, my friend called it the Colby Gym. And I was like, that's a weird thing to call food. And then he ordered it, and they brought out this like deep dish serving pan filled with meat, specifically beef, like pretty fatty galby beef, potatoes, and it's this, oh, what's it, it's like, one second, I need to Google this up, because it's this like Korean bread thing, and it looks like a noodle, except it's just like full of like kind of like a chewy, it's like a, what's it called? Good lord, I can't figure it out. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But
Okay.
it's like the Korean equivalent of gnocchi, if you will. It's like this kind of thicky, like bready kind of pasta biz. I know gnocchi's made of potatoes, or traditionally made of potatoes, but this is like bread, or like
Sure.
yeah. And then they put like what has to be about 1.5 pounds of shredded cheese on top of it, and then light it on fire, because who doesn't love that? It's just like they stick out. The best part is they come out, they set this down. It's massive.
Yeah.
It's got to be like 5 pounds of
Sure.
holy fuck. And then the server who brought it out lights it on fire with his blowtorch. And I initially look at the fire because it's right in front of me, and I'm a little worried it was going to catch my beard on fire, because it was a fireball, to be sure. I'm like, okay. And they keep doing it for a while, and I look over, and the look on the server's face was that of complete malaise. They're like, just another day. How many hours do I have left? Fuck, I kind of need to poop. Just like,
Wednesday pretty soon.
yeah, it's just like they could literally
Could not care
not
less.
have cared less. It was so fucking funny. And then we proceeded to take the next hour and try, which we basically did. I think we were like probably an ounce short of like cleaning the plate. Holy shit, I'm still feeling it very much today. So if I am slow on the pickup, y'all know why now. I feel like
Uh,
I need to go to a gym after having the Galbi gin.
the
It's
man has
like, oh,
induced immediate atherosclerosis.
yeah. It
Wow.
was a lot.
I can't mention one thing and commiserate in terms of feeling shitty. Well, not really. Bureaucracy is garbage. I hate
Mm.
medical bureaucracy. I wanted to go donate blood the other day and I got turned away because I went through the wrong people, which is agonizing.
No.
That's stupid.
Meow.
Eh, I actually scared somebody in the parking lot because I just walked outside and yelled "fuck," and I forget that I'm very fucking loud if I just let loose.
Yep.
And so, like, some woman, like, 50 feet away, like, jumped in her car. Just like, Jesus Christ. Like, fuck, sorry, ma'am.
I apologize for taking an hour off your life.
Uh,
Uh, and I don't know if you want to clue the reader or the
oh, yeah,
listeners in
sure.
on why you need to, because this is
I
not something that you just wanted to do for
no,
benefit of the
it's,
world.
no, that is a very pleasant upside, because, you know, I like getting karmic debt from the universe. It's always nice. But I'm an anemic person backwards. I have a condition called hereditary hemochromatosis, where basically my body just doesn't get rid of iron properly. Normally, you store some, you have some in your blood, and you piss out the rest. That is the normal operation. Anemic people piss out too much. I don't piss out any, basically.
That's Arnold Schwarzenegger's next movie. Instead of pumping iron, it's pissing iron.
So the easiest way to get rid of the excess is just to bleed. So just go donate blood. There's nothing wrong with my blood. It's not tainted. It's not different. I just have a bizarre genetic defect, essentially. So
And
I
it's
have
also
to.
like beneficial to people that are anemic, right? Because there is so much iron.
Yeah,
Or
I
no?
mean, like
Yeah.
it just so your blood has a static amount of iron it will hold. That is called your hematocrit. And generally that ranges between, in healthy people, that ranges between like 10 to 16 is the measure. And your blood kind of hits like a saturation point after that, and it just won't store more. And then it will deposit some, usually on your liver, as like a storage site. In case you,
Hold this, please.
yeah, pretty much. So like in case you bleed, or you know, like you have if you're in like a fucking car crash or something, and you lose a bunch of blood, so you've lost iron because you've dumped blood. Your bone marrow has to make new blood. It doesn't come equipped with iron, so you pull from your reserves. That's its purpose, right? Um, and so, and if you have too much iron because you're eating a shit ton of red meat or whatever, you're just taking too many iron supplements. Your body goes, I don't need this. Let me get rid of it. I just don't do the last part. I just keep dumping it on my liver. So I just have to bleed every now and again. But because it's considered a quote-unquote blood disorder, there's like all this fucking dumb litigious paperwork I have to do to just walk in and have somebody stab me in the arm with a needle.
Yeah.
And
When
the only
it's
way,
like completely fine blood.
yeah,
That
the
is...
only way I can infect somebody is by putting my dick in them and giving them a baby. That's the only way I can transmit this thing. It's genetic.
Look out, Artemis! He's got a
Look out,
an
he's
iron
got a
dick.
schlong. I really hope my neighbors heard
The
me
man
just
with the
yell, "He's
iron
got
cock."
a schlong. So yeah, I was very, very tilted Friday about this and
Yeah.
nearly screamed at a few people. So
But just
dumb.
resorted to scream. Man screams at cloud.
Yeah, and then I realized I shouldn't just keep screaming in public, so I got in my car and continued to yell.
Those poor armrests.
Nearly fucking got in a car crash. I was like, I need to get off the road. Anyway, what are we talking about today?
What a convenient transition.
We gotta get off this before I start seeing red, man.
So the topic today was conveniently kind of brought to our attention in a roundabout way from Ask Reddit, which I don't know about y'all out there, but for me is one of my favorite subreddits, and I would highly recommend checking out.
One of the highs of Reddit.
Yeah.
There's some lows.
Oh yeah, as of all the internet. But
Yeah.
somebody postulated the question: which game do you think has the best? Which video game specifically do you think has the best story, or
Yeah.
which is your favorite? Because like many things on here, I need to say this over and over because there's so many people that will have, as a teacher, I'm hearing kids in my classroom. I understand they are just kids, but I see it in plenty of adults as well, that they'll have conversations about what's the best and then call the other person an idiot for liking something else. These are our opinions of what is the best. There are certain criteria that we think holds more merit, as we were talking about. Some of these have story structure benefits, and some of the ones that we didn't include we think have story structure issues, and we think that makes them not empirically, but kind of academically not good, or not as good anyway. But you're free to like what you want.
There's that, and there's also certain things that have certain like different selling points.
For sure, but that's also subjective, right?
Sure, but but just a general blanket statement. There's a kind of a dumb preconceived notion that like video games can't have good stories. Like they're not a movie, they're not books. They don't have good stories. That's just false.
Yeah,
that's just.
And we're here to tell you the 7 that we loved. Take it away, Broskinkowski.
Okay, I'm going to start with this one because I need to play its sequel badly. There's a game called A Plague Tale: Innocence. I love
that call. A Plague Tale: Innocence.
I mean, the next
Plague
one
and
is a Plague
Innocence.
Tale: Requiem.
No, I know, but like Plague and Innocence right next to each other.
That does feel a little strange. So I had to look up the word musophobia, which is a fear of rats. So this game takes place in France, when in kind of an alternate history of when the Black Death happens.
In France.
When the Black Plague is happening. It's like a kind of, it's historical fiction in that regard. Mm-hmm. But instead of it really being like the plague is brought by rats, like rats are the plague. It's more rats than you ever want to see, and whoever did the audio design for the rats needs to die and also be given a medal. They feel like they are inside your brain.
Yeah.
It is uncomfortable. If you're not afraid of rats before playing this, you will be after. However, the main selling point is.
Sorry, I'm looking at pictures of this. Jesus Christ.
Oh yes. And the audio makes it worse. Anyway, however, the story is awesome, and it gives you, and it does something really well. Where some games make you the main character, and the narrative kind of focuses around you, and that's mostly the case here, where you play. Oh, I just blanked on the main character's name. You play a girl with her brother, and her brother has this strange ability.
De Rune.
Amicia, thank you. And her brother is, in a way, kind of the plot fixture. The things sort of have to happen around him because he has this strange thing in his blood called the macula, which allows him to kind of control the rats. Which, if you look at any pictures, given the volume of rats, is a superpower. And Amicia is doing her best to protect him and kind of keep him safe and not terrified because he's 7. And it does such a good job with character dynamics and her trying to do the right thing because she doesn't really know what that is, and friction between her and her naive younger brother who just wants to go see his mom.
Aww.
Because he's 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's so good. The dialogue is so good. It has really good pacing. It's got such good tension, and it does such a good job making you be present with the main character and just step into her shoes, and here we go. And it's outstanding.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really can't. I cannot praise the game for its storytelling and just kind of how much you feel lost. Because at the start, your house gets wrecked. People come in, they just kill your dad, they take your mom prisoner, and you take your brother and just fucking run. Alright, off to the races, let's go, boys.
Talk about an inciting event.
Yeah, it is. It's nuts.
And I think you're... Sorry.
The rats are...
And we talked about this before when we were kind of laying out the framework for this episode. One of the things that makes video games such a great storytelling device is that it allows you to other movies and books, they try to put you into that character's perspective. That
Yep.
not all movies do that, but a lot of movies they want you to see it from their position. There's
Yep.
some movies even that kind of incidentally replicate video games, and they do like the POV of the main character for large
Mm-hmm.
apportionments or whole entire movies,
Yep.
i.e., Hardcore Henry. Um, but one of the things that we liked about doing video games, especially games like that, where you like that one's a first person, right?
It's over the shoulder, third
Over the
person.
shoulder. Okay. But you very much get to live the game as that person and experience the story that the creators have engineered. So you
Yes.
are not only seeing it but playing through it, and you're getting a more immersive experience of that
Yeah.
story.
You are like hand in hand with Amicia through the shit. Like
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, just in general, with a lot of these, like, that's
yeah,
one of the things that we
that is
think
that is
makes video games such a great storytelling
yes. It
format.
puts a lot more emphasis on you and your engagement.
Hmm.
Um, because you're not just a spectator, even though it's like you're clearly not Master Chief from Halo, right? You're not. You know,
Wait, what?
I know, crazy. Let me
I.
wake that one. Santa's not real either.
Ah!
But just because you have agency and you take action,
Hmm.
and there's like kind of consequences for your misaction, sort of deal. It puts more weight on outcome and consequences, and that's why really well written games with good narratives feel in many ways rewarding, and it's like a treat to progress the story because you want to see how it goes because it is a way to further your investment. Um, because it's another methodology of engagement.
Toads. Well, if I may take that torch from you and run away from these rats.
Go for it. Please run from rats. They're terrifying.
Uh, my first pick is Borderlands 2 specifically. We're not going to talk about Borderlands 3
Nope.
per my brother's specific aggressive requests, or the Borderlands, was it the pre-sequeling, which was whatever.
Pre-sequel's okay, but it's
It
not.
was fine.
Two is the king. Is the
2 is
king
the
shit.
king. So Borderlands, the first Borderlands started. Jeez, that one's 2000. It's before 2010, right?
Like
I don't know. Doesn't really matter.
2008, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds about right. First one happened, and it was a very good sandbox. You're a mercenary on this weird planet. You can go do jobs, and you got the vibe of the land, and that was really fun. Didn't have a great story per se, but you kind of got to wander around and just experience the land that is Pandora for all that it had to offer, which is pretty cool. Borderlands 2 is really the perfect successor to that, especially when it comes to building a story. Part of that comes from having set up such a great game, but the other part is just really taking the sandbox and turning it into a sand castle that you have a character walk through, which I think is just genius.
Yeah.
They took the fun characters from the first one that you got to play through, and they didn't treat that as necessary, which I think is really smart, but treated it as like you get more out of the experience if you played the first one. I didn't play it all the way through like my co-host did, but I
Mm-hmm.
still thoroughly enjoyed Borderlands 2 because of the story they showed. And one of the big things that I want to emphasize, other than being able to go and do side quests that kind of what's the dang term? They really kind of helped reveal the rest. That reveal's not the right word. Dang it.
Flesh out.
Thank you. They really flushed out the whole entire universe that they had created. You got more. Doing a side quest wasn't just cool. You get this thing now that you might have wanted, or you don't need, but it, helps your guy progress. Like you get a cool new gun. But it really gave you. There was backstories that it really clued you in on. That without it, would you have been able to finish the game? Yes. Would you have still enjoyed the experience? Totally. But you got more out of it,
Yeah.
which is really fantastic.
I I think my favorite kind of Like one of the best things Borderlands 2 did was its audio logs and
Yeah.
how those strung together, and like the strings of audio logs you could find in certain zones. And I think my favorite and the most unsettling one um, is the one about Tiny Tina and her dad.
It's her dad or it's her parent. It's both her parents, right?
Yeah, but her dad is Krieg.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad is the psycho character they made playable.
Yeah, he was
Which,
a DLC character.
and they, so prior to him being released, there's a bunch of audio logs where her parents are stuck in a prison and are gonna get her out, and they give her like a hand grenade to throw, and just everything goes to shit because they break out like monsters that run rampant as a distraction, so Tina can run. And Krieg is a psycho. He's bonkers. He screams shit like, "I ride the shiniest meat bicycle." Absolutely bonkers.
I'm the conductor of the poop train.
Yeah, absolutely bananas. Like full blown Mad Hatter crazy. However, he has these occasional like weirdly lucid lines, and one of them is like, "I hope she's still okay." It's like, oh, put that away. Stop it, please. Yeah, and people put it together. It's like,
yeah.
Krieg is her dad.
And there's a small part of him that's still in there. Who cares?
Yeah.
And while that is amazing in and of itself, one of the other things that I really loved about Borderlands 2 is
Handsome Jack.
One of the best villains of all time, one of the best side characters of all time, one of the best voice acting of all time, and not only Handsome Jack, but all the other characters. All the voice acting is bonkers. The visuals are tremendous. Like, there's nothing about the game that isn't great. But one of the things that it does, like few others that I've ever seen, I haven't played as many games as my co-host, but it shows rebellion, and it shows the cost of rebellion, and it shows the reason for rebellion. So one of the biggest problems is that, and you'll see some through lines if you want pretty easily, is that there's a lot of corporations that are abusing Pandora for their own personal gain and doing a bunch of bad things to the planet and the bad people and bad things to the inhabitants there that are in like this kind of bad circumstance of being on this planet that hates you, and you know the businesses on the planet hate you too.
Yeah.
Seeing any through lines? I think you might have. So on top of that, because of that, you have these characters that feel the need that these corporations, specifically, what's Handsome Jack's corporation? Hyperion needs to fucking go, because it's doing bad shit in every which way.
Yeah.
To do that, you have to, especially in this universe, you have to do a literal rebellion, and that's what they do. And it shows the wear and tear on the characters that you like, the NPCs that were the characters from the last game, which is really fun. You get to interact with them in fun ways. They have these great characters with great arcs, and they not only does your character change and do you change as a player by just participating in this and seeing the way the whole entire thing kind of is, but the NPCs change and they have character arcs, which I think is just amazing.
Yeah.
But you see the wear and tear that the rebellion has on just the characters doing it. Like, there is a relationship between two of the main NPCs, and you see how much of a toll it takes, but how committed, even though they are so committed to it, it's not free to upset the status quo, even if it needs to go. It does take a toll. And then not only that, but the cost of, things have to... you don't get to upset the world order for free.
Yeah.
Nobody's that lucky. And it costs things that really matter. And like a good story, one of the things we've talked about, the economy of the kind of term I'm just coining as we go on, is the economy of character and the economy of cost to build said character. And to have a story matter, things, to have something matter, you have to pay a cost. Otherwise, it's free, and free is not that fun. It doesn't mean that much to you. If you find something on the ground that's free, it's cool, but it doesn't mean as much to you as if you worked hard for it, if you paid for it. And so much, the creator of this, it's the same guy that does movies with Mikey, actually, is the creator of the first and second Borderlands. Highly recommend checking out Movies with Mikey. It's another great channel if you like talking about story. He is a beautiful man who just focuses on the mono positive, and a great guy. highly recommend looking him up. I will include his channel in here. Um, and in this, he does a really good job of making you care, and then being a dick and making you hurt because you care. I don't want to spoil anything. We've already said, some fun little tidbits, but if anything I've said sounds good to you, I'd recommend checking it out. Also, it's fun as hell and it has the most like whip smart dialogue in probably any game I've ever played.
It's got some great kind of slapsticky humor.
Yeah,
Dialogue.
it's slapsticky humor, but also just like very smart, very quippy. It's got a villain that you love to hate. He's the funniest, most annoying son of a bitch ever.
Some of it is not smart. It's really good slapstick. Like that's 90% of the humor. You're either gonna love it from 5 minutes in, and you're gonna be like, "I'm on board," or you're gonna know it's not for you and just put it down. It's not gonna change.
I'm trying to think. I feel like there's got to be some movies that this kind of is reminiscent of when it comes to its humor and its genre type. I'm trying to think, because it is like in its landscape, it's very Mad Max meets, I'm trying to think, like, Mad Max might be the best expression of it, although it is, I guess it's Mad Max meets Star Wars. Actually, hold on, no, I know exactly what it is. It's Mad Max meets, Spaceballs. That's what this game is.
You know what? Okay. Yeah. Alright. Fair enough. It is a bit Mel Brooks-esque.
Yeah.
It's like Mel Brooks.
It's got that very intelligent,
with, like,
very
guy.
Yeah. It's got that very smart, very stupid humor that it's like highbrow. It's a dad joke from a guy with a PhD. Like, it's a smart dad joke, but it's also a dad joke.
I feel like you're overselling some of it to a degree, because I don't think it's as smart as you want it to be. But
okay, I might just like it a lot.
Listen,
way,
I love it. But
yeah,
it's got some dumb humor to it.
Sure, that's fair. But
it's just my default tone of voice. I'm actually quite depressed.
I mean, stairs. My only weakness is the smartest dumb diatribe I've ever heard.
Stairs. No. Oh, the audio capture for that is amazing.
Yeah, it sounded amazing.
Claptrap is a gem.
Yeah.
All right,
Yet another reason to not play the third one.
Yeah, I can't. I'm taking that away before I can get started. So, there's a game that I mentioned I'm going to dump way too many hours into, and it's called Path of Exile. It's a love letter to Diablo 2 and what Diablo 3 could have been. It is a very, very dark-themed ARPG. And the whole premise is that you are this exile from this You're an exile from this crazy island country called Oriath, which is basically run by, like, the Spanish Inquisition. They're called the Templars, and they're fucking religious zealots. They're crazy. And on surface, the story of this game is very, very simple. They kick you off to said island, you fight, become stronger, find these crazy gem things that make you more powerful, and kill this kind of giant monster that's poisoning the land. And go back to Oriath, kick the shit out of some people, and realize you've accidentally woken up the gods, get kicked back to Ray class, kill the gods, because they are mortal, and they're still waking up, so they're tired. They are tired and live vulnerable. And then, fight way back to Oriath, kill the big king shit god that's eating everything, and then you're kind of a hero.
Woo!
And then realize that kids are being abducted, there's eldritch shit from other dimensions, go kill that too. A lot of murder. Whole lot of murder in this game. I cannot stress the amount of murder in this game.
I think there's only one game I guess there's 1.5 games we mentioned on here that don't involve a fair amount of murder. And so, like, on surface, I mean, I just went through 20 plus hours of
of hard gameplay to get there. Like, the story is very, very basic, and so there's kind of two stories between the campaign and then the end game progression, which they sort of update more regularly. And it's very simple. Basically, bad guy does X, bad thing to us, or bad things are going to happen. Let's go kill him to prevent that. Super basic. However,
Uh, the old days when everything was so
when
simple.
everything was so simple and could be solved by murder. However, there is a lot of extra dialogue you can opt into because developers, there's one caveat that games have to do that things like movies and novels are not as subject to. And it's that if I'm reading a book or I'm watching a movie, I'm going there for the explicit purpose of enjoying the story, enjoying the book, whatever. If I'm playing a game, it's because I want to be playing. So there is kind of a delicate balance between lore dumping and exposition dumping with dialogue versus engagement. Because if you force it on people, you can bore the shit out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a delicate balancing act. And so Path of Exile does a super good job giving you very basic story beats to compel motion forward, as it were. But if you want to, there is a ton of backstory and crazy information that can flesh out the world. And it's actually super cool. The end game story, while it is big eldritch bad things are coming to us, it's like, well, yes, but we got there through really interesting means. Like, the guy who got us there is a guy called the Shaper, who is named Valdo Caesarius. And Valdo was being pressured by the Inquisition because they wanted power, and he accidentally made a fucking gateway that found this thing called the Elder. And the Elder went, huh, you guys seem cool, and he started abducting children. Which
I've always wanted a little one of you.
Which there's actually a really unsettling thing to think about, and it's the Elder is in this arena, and around the arena there's just a bunch of statues. Those were people. They're just
No.
they're just like calcium statues now.
Yeah.
This is like, those are all kids. Jesus. And then because you kill him, like, you actually have a way to get rid of the Elder, and you put him in a box like Ghostbusters. His absence and, like, abrupt disappearance causes kind of a disturbance and attracts other eldritch entities to our realm of existence. Because we opened the door, and we can't really close it. And so now there's more things that want to fucking torch the place, because they're just basically big demons who have one purpose. One is to eat, one is to burn. And so it's really basic. Like, very basic, very easy to get the gist, very easy to go, oh, cool, us, them, let's go. But, like, the more you talk and want to learn, there's a lot more nuance to it, and a lot more interest and intrigue that I think is so cool, and they do it so well.
That's awesome. And horrifying. I didn't know about the calcium statues.
Yeah, no,
Jesus.
Elder is super creepy. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, most elders in real life are super creepy. Got him.
Yeah, but, like, he's feasting on memories, and so Valdo Caesarius accidentally finds him, and so he looks at Valdo and goes, huh, you're powerful, I want to eat your brain. And so he kind of does. Like, he starts...
What a scary sentence to ever hear.
Yeah, and so he starts, like, feasting on Shaper's memories. And so he just, like, chases the Shaper around. And so you go try to find him because the person who introduces you to the machine, Zana, is the Shaper's daughter. And she wants to save her dad. The problem is, he doesn't remember who she is because he's been driven insane. Yeah, it's like, wow, this is rough. What the fuck? There's so much more to it than just, he's the big bad. It's like, he is. However.
Jeez.
So, yeah, what do you got next on the list? Because I can go on way too long about this game.
Yeah, here, let me grab the mic real quick.
Please do. Please take it away.
So, this fantastic game came out, I think it was like now about 4 years ago. Maybe a little more than that. Called Celeste. Celeste is a fantastic 8-bit style, like Super Nintendo, actually probably more like regular Nintendo styled game where
Mm-hmm.
you play this character, Celeste, who's going on a journey up to the top of a mountain. It's been a minute since I played the game, so I apologize if any of the details are slightly incorrect. But she's going up to the top of the mountain, and one of the things that the story and I believe the creator has basically said about the game is that the principle of the game was showing, expressing, and helping people who suffered from anxiety, depression, and that kind of area of correct to call it a mental disorder or a social disorder was
You could probably call it a mental disorder.
yeah, going through those style of tribulations, and it really helps to put it on screen for those who experience it so they don't feel as alone, and for those who don't so they can kind of get an idea. And it does it in a way that isn't like this, because it's like, this little 8-bit game. It doesn't feel so real that you're like, holy crap, and like trigger you, but
Mm-hmm.
you kind of get it.
Yeah.
In the whole entire game, this is the only game on this list that definitively has no killing. Uh, Pretty much all you're trying to do is do puzzle solving. It's like,
Sorry.
bless you. It's doing a lot of like, if you've seen, there's a term for this and I forget what it is, but the Mario Maker games where you make these insane levels where you have to do it exactly perfect.
Oh, there is a
There's a
word for
term
that.
for it. Yeah.
I'll look. I'll look. Keep talking.
Okay. So it's that style of thing, except they basically took out all the enemies. There's basically no fighting. It's all just this difficult 2D puzzle solving. And it's really amazing. And the soundtrack is so mostly soothing. And occasionally when it is anxiety time or, hit you with the like disorder moment and to feel that for the character's part, it is very off-putting in the way that is intended. Um, One of the things this really does that I think is amazing that I don't think I've seen very many video games do is tell a personal story. A lot of this story is it's not exactly because this story is insane, but it's very much telling through a fictional way. From my understanding, the creator's kind of journey with this problem, with this
Mm-hmm.
disorder. And the my understanding is the reason that the story was created was to help her tell her story, get it out there, and so help others heal who have that same issue, and so that they
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel so alone, so they got to express it with their friends and help people who knew people that have this issue kind of get a glimpse. It's not gonna, you're not gonna play this game and be like, oh, I understand everything. It's a fucking game, but it gives you a very decent idea.
Sorry, found it. Kaizo.
Yep, Kaizo. So, for those of you that don't know, the Kaizo Mario Maker kind of thing is people will make these fucking levels that are insane and should never be in a traditional video game, basically. Except Celeste was like, I think that can be in my game. A lot of these are like mini Kaizo levels without enemies for the most part. There's occasionally you'll get chased by something and you can kind of
You can be out timed.
uh yeah,
Or
you
can
do you
time out
can
a stage.
yeah. You can interact with some of the antagonists, but it's very rarely that you defeat them.
Yeah.
More just keep them at bay until you get out of the area, which again is really about, what a lot of these disorders are. It's not you're not defeating it, you're finding a way to get past it in whichever way is
Yep.
going to work for you best. And so that's really one of the best ways of showcasing that is like you don't defeat it. It still is
Mm-hmm.
there. Like I believe at the end the antagonist, which is this like mirror version of yourself, which is
Mm-hmm.
out to cause you harm. I don't think it actually even believes it's causing you harm, but it is obviously causing you harm. I don't believe it's gone. I think you find, if I remember correctly, you find peace with it. Slight spoiler alert. But I don't know, that kind of storytelling for the creator and for those who suffer as such. It's one of my favorite things when they do this in films as well, that somebody takes a very personal experience one of the kind of lower, not lower, more incidental versions of this is in Baby Driver. The reason, if so, the main character in Baby Driver has oh, what's that hearing disorder?
Tinnitus.
Tinnitus. And if you listen in the background, in every single scene, he has his headphones off. You hear, as best he could show, in the most low res way, the experience of tinnitus. You hear this high pitched in the background whenever he has his headphones off. That's always happening deep in the cut. And that was very much because Edgar Wright, as I know it, has a friend, a family member, somebody he knows and cares for who has tinnitus, and wanted people out there who have tinnitus to be seen and be a little bit more understood. And that is just one of the really cool things that you can do. And some have done. I'm sure there's better examples, but that's one that I know and just find beautiful that's come out recently. And it's really cool when a creator is able to show something that a loved one suffers with, or tell a loved one's story for them, or tell their own. And
Yep.
so that's the reason I chose Celeste. Well,
All
I
right.
get a tissue and wring out my eyes a little bit. Eli, what you got?
Let me get back to the violence.
All right.
So, Bioshock, classic, I want to say it was Bethesda that made it.
That sounds right.
Watch me be wrong, and have the whole internet like, what are you talking about?
Looks like you're right.
2K developers, designer, publisher, shit. No, it's 2K. Who made you? Anyway, Bioshock is a classic. And if I showed you the design for Big Daddy, you've seen it, right? The big fucking like nautical suit with the big fucking drill arm. Like everyone knows what Bioshock is. And in many ways, Bioshock has a very blasé story for a lot of it. It's go do X, kill big daddies, eat their power, deal with crazy miscreants from Rapture, and there's a lot of interesting history around Rapture and the underwater city. But in many ways, it's some cool environmental storytelling and some kind of incidental like go do X for the voice, the mouthpiece in your ear. But the whole time, you're just learning about Andrew Ryan, who is the guy who made Rapture. And you're being drip-fed all this stuff from Atlas, who's in your ear, about how Andrew Ryan is so terrible and Ryan has messed everything up. But you're seeing stuff in this environment talking about a guy named Fontaine, who's, this crazy terrorist, and he was the biggest threat to Rapture's stability and safety, and he helped trigger all of these terrible things to happen. All the while, you're just the gunman and bagman for the voice in your ear for Atlas. And you finally can find... I'm going to spoil this, but this game is 15 years old. Deal with it.
Spoiler alert!
You confront Andrew Ryan. And you can't... And control is actually taken from your character, and you just start beating the shit out of him with a golf club. Like, the guy's like...
I don't remember it was with a golf club. That's messed up and
take
hilarious.
a golf club from him and just start beating him to death with it. You can't stop. All the while, he's telling you, a man does, a slave obeys. And you realize that the guy in your voice, or the voice in your ear, is Fontaine. And you have been controlled the entire game with him saying the words, "Would you kindly?" You are a puppet. You are a slave. And you have been the whole time. It is the coolest fucking pullback of the curtain, and it makes everything make sense for why you're doing it, why you seem to have no past, like why you don't have any other motivations, and why you're just blindly following some shithead telling you to go kill people. It is such an awesome fucking drawback on the curtain, and you get to experience the twist and look back on everything you've done the whole game and go, no fucking way. And it's one of those things that, like, twists are good in books and movies, and if you get a good twist and a good bamboozle and your audience is like, the fuck? you know, but you have played it. You did it. And it just
Hmm.
adds an extra, like, twist to that knife, like, oh, this motherfucker. And it's so good. And it's one of those things, because of the extra engagement, it makes that note hit that much harder. And it's one of the best twists in anything I've played, watched, read, whatever. It's such a good pullback, and it spends so much time innocuously and quietly setting it up, and you don't think anything of it because you have no reason to doubt the voice in your ear, and that's just how he talks. That's just how he
Hmm.
makes requests. Just would you kindly? It's like saying please.
Yeah,
You don't
it's a
think anything.
very
Yeah,
innocuous,
you don't think
just
anything
like
of it.
it is very reminiscent of some of my favorite things in cinema, where something that ends up being a clue later was something that is just relatively normal
Yeah,
or normally done, and so it doesn't draw attention to itself.
yeah.
It's very, very genius.
All right. What is next on the list?
Next on the list is the fantastic in every way I've ever heard game, just meaning inside the game and out. Like everything I've heard about this game is the best. I'm talking about Hades. The company is amazing. The
Supergiant is great.
Supergiant's great too, not only in its game it creates, which is, you love to have a company that you can rely on anytime you see a product by them going, ooh, cool, I should try this. I love this company.
Yep.
Fantastic. Love that. Like, love the ability to have brand loyalty when it comes to creation. Big
Mm-hmm.
fan. Then you've got the fact that they treat their company and the people inside of it very well, to the point that even people that have left have never talked mad shit about it. It's always like, no, it was great working there. One of the biggest problems in game creation, and probably sadly some of these that we've talked about, is the way they treat their employees, their testers.
It's
It's
not good.
really not good. However, not the case with them. They are so good. Their hours are very reasonable.
Yeah.
The way they treat their employees is very
Like humans.
kind. Yeah, like human fucking beings that deserve time off and normal hours and decent pay. And so I'm gonna start with there. It's fucking beautiful to hear. Love that. And then they put out a banger in Hades.
Yeah. They
My
Supergiant
brother and
does not
co-host.
make many games.
No.
The games they make are very, very good, and this is the
Yes.
best one they've made by
Yeah,
a mile.
and it's also the most recent one, which is also a good sign. As time goes on, they are getting better at their craft, which you also love to fucking see. And as I'm going to hand the mic to my co-host for a second and let him go off before I go back to why I love it, why don't you tell the kids at home about why Hades is so good when it comes to the lore?
So, Hades does an amazing job with Greek mythology and Greeks and a lot of the kind of facets of Greek mythology that it likes to touch on. From everything from how like the gods talk and are these self-absorbed narcissistic dicks to how Hades really isn't the bad guy to interactions between him and Nyx and the other kind of minor gods that people don't talk about, like Thanatos or with like Megara, and how the underworld is kind of its own ecosystem that is so seldom explored, but the little bit that they use and extrapolate from is so good, and they use dead heroes as extra kind of characters to flesh it out, like um, they've got a very humbled fucking Achilles is like one of the kind of people you talk to. He's the guy who trains you, quote unquote. Um, and he's not the same brash, arrogant bastard as he was because, well, his ass is dead now. And he's had a lot of time to just think and reflect on, man, he really put an emphasis on the wrong things in life, and he wishes
Yep.
he could go back. And so, like, one of the great things, small spoiler, one of the great side plots you get to do is help unite him and Patroclus, who is his boy toy. And because he realizes he let him die, like he let Patroclus die, and he regrets it. and he wishes he could undo that terrible mistake he made. Like, there's so much good and very reverent storytelling and kind of
That
appreciation
is,
for the source.
yeah, that is not only like good in a storytelling sense, but is also respectful for the material.
Yeah, and
It's
like,
not like conjuring. It's there's a lot of these that play with past things. Like if you look at God of War, it plays with it and makes its own. Fine, but in doing so, it usually kind of betrays the source material. This one takes the source material, elevates it to our current time period, and like a little bit more, current lingo and understanding of interrelationships. But in no way does it ever, I love the movie Hercules from Disney.
oh, it is not.
However, so much of the information that is in that movie is contradictory to the source material. Hades, very little of it, in my understanding and from talking with you, bro, is in any way divergent from it. A lot of it is, if it's off, it's walking next to it, not walking away from it.
Yeah, like there, and there, it takes a few like kind of liberties in placing people, but that's kind of it. And even then,
Mm-hmm.
it's like liberties, but it's like, yeah, they're fucking dead. Of course they're gonna be here. Like easy examples like Orpheus. Like Orpheus is in mythology. He's the guy who went to go get back his wife Eurydice, and he played music so well that Hades was basically, I'm sorry, not Hades, Persephone was willing to grant his request and like convinced Hades to go along with it. And he's like, fucking fine. Um, and so he's like, all right, condition you don't turn around. You have to trust me. And so Orpheus turned around like an asshole, and Eurydice was trapped in Hades. One of the characters there is Orpheus, because Hades wanted him to play it in his fucking court. He's like, you're the music man, play.
Dance, monkey.
Yeah, exactly. But like one of the characters you find is Eurydice. Like she's still in fucking Hades. Where else is she gonna go? You're in the afterlife. They're gonna be there. So that's the one thing where it takes kind of liberties is like, ooh, these people are all dead. They are free reign.
Yep. So this conveniently brings me to the next thing I love about the game before we even get to talking about the story, which is the music in the game might be the best music in any game you'll ever play. And I mean that from a musical standpoint.
I'd argue maybe like Doom Eternal, but it's a very different brand of music.
Yeah.
But like that, banger. But
Yeah.
yeah, the music,
it's
music in
definitely
Hades is incredible.
It's incredible, and it's incredible for multiple reasons. One, the music is just by and of itself is amazing. Just YouTube the soundtrack. They again love the company. They put it up. You can just the whole entire thing is on YouTube. You can just listen to it. You don't have to buy it like some other
bangs.
games do. It's not ripped. It's they put it up. You can just listen to it. And it's tremendous.
It bangs.
Even the stuff that's just background or the fight, the fucking fight scene music, jeez, tremendous. Not only that, but the way they went about making the music, they did, this kind of, you're playing a fight scene versus a bone hydra. You got to make it metal. You can't have something acoustic and flurry and fun. It's got to go hard. Well, they did.
It goes
but
hard.
They did. It goes hard with the instruments of the time. Like, wrap your head around that. They're taking the instruments from, like, Greece, from ancient Greece.
I think the only person that actually gets like a proper fucking metal guitar is actually Hades.
Yeah. The rest of the stuff is, I mean, they're tweaking it. They're making it so that it's, again, this is exactly what we're talking about when it comes to the storytelling, where it's like, yeah, Poseidon wasn't a surfer dude, but he kind of was. And so it's not divergent from, it's kind of running alongside with the idea of the character taking some liberties but staying true to the core of it.
Yep.
It is heavy. They would never have played this in ancient Greece, but they kind of could have if they had a little bit of our tech.
So if they really wanted to, yeah.
Yeah. And it just goes hard in the best kind of ways.
Oh,
and same with the musical, and same with the visual. It's like, is this the way stuff would have looked in ancient Greece? No, it probably wouldn't have been so cel-shaded and hardcore. But also, some of this accoutrement, this isn't that far off. And so, just the whole milieu of the thing is just like, yeah, it's not in quotes accurate, but it's damn close. And for being such a great game, it takes the right amount of liberty without being too divergent from the source material, but without being so close that it's just like,
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, what is this? A history lesson? This is boring as fuck.
yeah.
Now to the actual game. Oh baby, very few games let you escape the reality that you're playing a game. Because when you die in a game and it says, would you like to continue? It's like, oh yeah, this is a video game. Hades has the perfect workaround that is just next level brilliance.
You're already in the afterlife. Where the fuck are you gonna go?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to come back.
It's like that Tom Cruise movie, Live, Die, Repeat. You every time your character dies, where are you going to go but to Hades, which is where you started. So your start over point is the start place that you began, but it would be if this was, your actual life. If you were Zagreus, that's where you would be going. So it's this perfect enclosed loop of like cogent logic.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
brilliant.
it's the only roguelite I've ever played that uses death as a storytelling mechanic. And
Yeah.
I love me some roguelites. Like absolutely adore me some
Not
roguelites.
taking anything away from the other roguelites that don't, but the fact that
put
this one
too many
could,
hours into Risk of Rain 2. It does not it does not play a story the same way that Hades does. Hades did an excellent job with this workaround.
yeah, just
It- yeah.
brilliant.
Yes.
And then you have each time you're going through,
Goes
you're
a little bit
interacting
farther.
with, yeah, you progress farther. It, to kind of keep check on it of like how many times you've died. There's a mirror of memory that you can check and show your stats. But that's kind of what it would do in a less numbery sort of way. So it tracks. Each time you're going through, you're interacting with the same people. Your dad, the the devilish dickhole that is Hades, you're hanging out with him, and he's being annoyed at you because you're his you're his son. You're getting in the way of his work. You're talking to your effective foster mother in what's her name,
Nyx.
Nyx. And your relationships are changing since you effectively fight, die, repeat, sometimes even beat the person to get past them. Each time you're interacting with some of the like in quote bosses, the lines change because you've experienced them, and
Yeah. The relationships advance.
yeah, relationships advance in this roguelite, which is nobody's ever done because to be fair to the other ones that are great, the circumstance doesn't allow for it, and this one
No.
does in this such organic way.
Yeah. And it does
You get to because good.
and it's also just got such a great attention to detail where there's no plot holes. Like the spoiler, the final boss getting out is Hades because he doesn't want you to leave.
Yeah. Papa
If
said
you-
no.
If you lose to him when you show back up, he's not there because he didn't take the fucking express route home.
He didn't cap
Like his
himself.
desk his desk is empty until you leave again, and he has time to walk his happy ass back down the stairs to his office. Like its attention to detail is exquisite.
Yeah. No other game has like no, it's like, oh, okay, well, the developers, nope. They checked all the boxes.
Yeah, it's
The
so good.
yeah, gosh. Yeah, it's just seamless. And the fact, another spoiler alert, when to beat the game because you are not used to being outside of Hades, your body is not ready to be outside of Hades. So you don't get to beat the game once and be done with it. You have to beat it multiple times to escape and see your mother, who is spacing name again.
Persephone.
Help. Persephone. You can go see her, but your longevity outside of the underworld is not that long because you're not ready to do that.
Well,
so you have to continue.
You're not from there. You're not
Yeah.
meant to exist there.
Yeah. So you continue going more and more times, and each time you see her, it's not the same line like it would be, and understandably would be in other roguelites, because you're building a story. Even though sometimes you're not always making it each run, you're building a story, and you're effectively building up almost like an immunity, right, to the outside.
I can't talk to that without spoiling.
Okay, let's leave that for people to figure out. But it takes a bunch of attempts
Yeah.
for you to be able to truly leave. So it's not this one and done thing, even though it's hard as shit even the first time.
Yeah,
And that's just, yeah. It's amazing.
it's
It
great.
is really a lifetime of a story that you are taking part in. But it, while being like most roguelites monotonous, it's not monotonous because that's the archetypical thing. It's monotonous because that's what escaping hell in this game and in real life is.
Yeah, and
It's day in, day out, rinse, repeat, fight
also
through all the bullshit that's
as
annoying.
as much as we have absolutely uh, jerked off the storytelling, and it deserves every bit of it. Its actual gameplay is phenomenal too. I just want to
Yes.
add that just as
Oh
a
yeah.
footnote. It's great. Just go play it. If you haven't played it,
Yeah.
go fucking play it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Go play it.
You'll, even if you lose, I sucked at that game. I still suck at that game. It's amazing.
It's
It
phenomenal.
is,
The voice acting's phenomenal. The art's phenomenal. The music's phenomenal. The story's phenomenal. It's just
yeah,
fucking phenomenal. It's one of the most perfect
yeah.
games I've ever played, bar none.
11 out of 10 would do again. It's just, it's a game that if it was a movie, I would own the extra secret Blu-ray that like one of the creators accidentally like touched with his real finger.
Yeah.
Like it's worth everything
Yes.
that it's been said and more. And to round out this category, your
I
other favorite.
I want to hit us end on a very light note because comedy is something that is not limited just to movies because Portal 2 is a game. Um, Portal 2 has some fucking goofy ass storytelling, and one of the best things about it is when you're in the old facility. And for anyone who hasn't played Portal, you are a mute protagonist. You don't say a word, and that's actually made fun of in Portal 2 because people want you to reply to them and you just don't. Like at the start, they ask you to say yes or no, and it says jump, like spacebar, to say yes or no. It just makes you jump. And the computer goes, well, that's just jumping. It's not really saying yes or no. That's not helpful. Yeah, but it's so you end up going through the bowels of this old company, and the best character ever is Cave Johnson, who's this fucking megalomaniac of a CEO, and it's voiced by J.K.
Also,
Simmons.
great fucking Cave Johnson.
Cave Johnson.
It sounds like they just like threw two words, like they just like had a wall of words of, like those.
What's his first name? Cave. All right, fuck it. But
And the most generic last name, Johnson. Got it. Get in there.
It's that or some flip a coin. But it's J.K. Simmons just saying the most outlandish fucking balderdash. It's outstanding. Like one of the things they do is they introduce a bunch of mechanics. One of them is this blue gel that like bounces you, right? And you have to use it to Portal's it's a puzzle game, and so you have to use it to make your way out of this stage. But all the while he's talking, or when you walk in, he starts talking about the repulsion gel is the blue gel. And he's like, "Hey, just be glad you're not part of the control group. Those poor bastards had blue paint." No, in all seriousness, they broke all the bones in their legs. So you just get fed shit like that, and slowly get the story of how this company fell from grace and lost all its money and all this other shit. And just through bizarre fucking quips like that. And you learn that GLaDOS, who is kind of the main antagonist of the first one and a chunk of the second one, is like his old assistant put in a computer. Because she gets like super excited hearing him talk.
No.
Yeah. And it also just has some of the best quotable dialogue ever.
Also, along great other voice acting, you have J.K. Simmons as Cave Johnson. You have, I don't remember which one he is, but you have Stephen Merchant from, I think he was, I want to say the Dwight equivalent in the British Office. He's done a bunch of...
He's Wheatley. He's the dumb AI.
Yeah, okay. He's Wheatley, but he's played amazingly. The guy is comedic brilliance.
Oh, he
in and
plays,
outside of this
he
game.
He plays an idiot that's designed to be an idiot, and it's hilarious. So GLaDOS, when she hears him talking, she goes, "Wait, I know you." Because they tried to limit me by putting like a dumb AI on me. You were a tumor. It's like, you're the dumbest AI ever invented to be dumb. And so his response to being called stupid is he just bashes you into the floor. He goes, "Could an idiot do this! It just smashes you like a caveman. And it turns out he can't run the fucking factory because he's not smart, and so everything's on fire, and he's like, it's fine. It's totally fine, guys. It's there are very few games that hit comedy super, super well, and it's a very hard thing to do comedy while you're actively playing something, but it's so funny. Like, in large part, it's carried by voice acting and goofy character chemistry, but
But it
I love
also
Portal
does have
2.
like a very decent story to it, right? The second
Yeah.
one very much like
Yeah,
you're not
the
just
first one is a game demo. Let's be real; it was like a
yeah
tech demo for Valve.
yeah.
But
The second
um,
one they really did create a
yeah,
story. It has stakes. You move along.
it's very good. It's very simple. Like it's not complicated. It's very basic, and
Mhm.
it knows it stays in its lane. And I appreciate it. It doesn't try to introduce crazy twists and turns and blah blah blah. It's like no. Let's not pretend. Um, you get a dilapidated fucking factory, and these computers have things they need to do, like orders they have to fulfill, and you disrupt the status quo. Shit happens. Um, like it's basic, but it's really funny, and it sticks to what it does well, and so it works. Like you don't have to be complicated to have an engaging story, an engaging game. I think that goes as well for like movies and books as well. It doesn't have to be super complicated. Like sometimes simple works, especially if you have
Yeah.
a good draw. Like it's really fucking funny. Like
Yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, that's what I was talking with this about somebody the other day. Is just like a lot of really good. Oh, I was talking with a friend of the podcast and hopeful eventual guest. His name's Brett. He is somebody that works in Hollywood. He does a lot of post work. I believe like
hmm
kind of he's a post producer, but he's also another writer and somebody that has worked with and worked on plenty of shows. Cougar Town is the one that I believe that he was. I don't remember if he's part of the writing staff on that one or not. But anyway, he was telling me about working with some big producers and them talking about the way you do sitcoms,
hmm
which situational comedy, and that it very much is the story needs to. It's almost you want to get 3 jokes per page for 24 pages roughly, and you want to have the stake of the episode or the kind of problem that needs to be solved by the character introduced by page 3. And so a lot of them are, like you're saying, it's very simple. It's
yep,
not, you're not trying to break the bank. That's not generally what sitcoms, you want to keep it light, but you do want to keep it noticeable and you do want to keep it there. And that's kind of
yep,
what, like, sounds like what you're talking about with Portal is that it's like, look, we want to have great jokes, we want to have a lot of fun. However, obviously, you do need to have a story.
yeah,
Like, if you don't have lack of story, it's fine, but then you have a sandbox. And, that's its own thing. But if you want to have a story, you need to keep it. If you want to have a story and you want to have jokes, one of them needs to be playing center role and one of them needs to be playing backup. If you want jokes to take the main stage, games are supposed to be fun. Sounds like the story needs to take the kind of the backup role, but that means it needs to be not, and I do not say this is in any way a disparaging remark, but it needs to be bare bones, and so it's kind of the skeleton that you flesh out all the jokes on top of, and so it needs to be very strong, but it also needs to be very simple so it doesn't get in the way of the comedy.
yep. I would say that hits it to a T. It's very simple,
Nailed it.
very very easy to digest, but it works. It's very obvious stakes.
Yeah. Good job, Portal 2. Good job. Head pat.
Don't take life's lemons. Get mad. I don't want your damn lemons. If you just haven't, just look up like a supercut of Cave Johnson quotes. You will not regret it.
And while you do that, we're going to take an ad break. So listen to this week's sponsor or listen to Cave Johnson. Either way, see y'all in a bit.
Do you enjoy glorifying serial killers and worshiping crime in all its forms? What? No, of course not. But do you? Don't worry. You're not alone. There are tons of people who get a thrill hearing about the horrible, wacky, and sadistic things that the worst of us will do to one another. And thanks to the forced incarceration of the world during COVID, the desire for true crime documentaries has only ballooned into a social phenomenon rivaled only by the MCU. And whether you want to look at crimes gone wrong, bank robberies gone sideways, or just some of the truly awful and twisted and sadistic things from the minds of Ted Bundy and the like, you can be sure that you'll find someone to narrate it at you in a pace that is just too slow for normal conversation. What are you waiting for? Find your correct criminal today.
Welcome back, folks. Broskinkowski, you got a pitch, a story, an idea, ruminating around that old noggin?
I've been thinking of an old character from my web serial that I'm still maybe going to write a sequel to. I don't fucking know, man. But playing with the idea of effectively a reformed mobster in Shockwave, who has functionally lost everything in many ways. Like he lost most of his crew, and he lost his kind of longtime frenemy. So he's out of the game. He doesn't want to be in the game anymore, but still has some respect for it. And it's been kind of interesting looking at, like, writing a little bit, just sort of small vignettes of him being kind of doubted, called soft, and then painting someone's head, or using someone's head as, like, paint for his back wall. Because as I left him at the end of my web serial, he basically runs, like, a bar restaurant thing that's a neutral ground if people want to talk. And so the rule is you don't fight, because he respects both sides of the coin. He's like, criminals are going to do what criminals want to do, and heroes are going to do what fucking heroes want to do. And I'm just here to make shit less bloody. No fighting in my joint, or I'll just kill you.
Yeah.
Because he's still, a howitzer cannon with legs. So
The visual I'm getting of that is hilarious. Just this, like, cannon with little tiny legs just walking around.
yeah, like he was one of the fucking big names for a big reason. Because he could just put holes in people and buildings.
Big bad.
Yeah, and so he's willing to and he recognizes that it's stupid. It's stupid. It's all ego. It's all arrogance. And it's this dumb emotional attachment that people can't let go of. And he gets it. Like, he gets why people want to be scoundrels, like the official name for a supervillain, essentially. He's like, he gets the appeal, he gets the power, the financial gain, all that shit. He gets it. And so he's not going to tell people, you're a fucking idiot, stop. Because he knows it won't matter. It's deaf ears. So he's just like, alright, you're going to do what you got to do. Don't fight in my joint. You can come in here and talk, and you can hash out, like, territory disputes or whatever. It's like,
kind of sounds like the hotel in the John Wick series almost.
Kind of. No, it's like it's a dedicated neutral ground, and I've written two little kind of short vignettes. As one with some punk kid disrespecting him, and his friends are like, "You need to shut the fuck up, dude." And he's like, "Nah, fuck this clown." Yeah, he doesn't know what's up, and so Shockwave just blows his head off. He's like, "Sorry about your friend. I can't have him doing that." And the other is someone trying to intimidate him, and he's still just, like, she wants him to stay out of the game, but he's still fiercely loyal to people that the other survivors of Cillier. She's like, "I'm going to abduct one of them, and I want you to stay out of this." And he goes, "That's not happening." He's like, it's very clear. I will die for my friends, because they died for me. So you touch her, I'll kill you. Like, I won't stay neutral if you touch her. Like, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Now get the fuck out of my bar. Like, so it's kind of been fun to see, like, the wisdom of, like, someone who's been there and done it and gets both sides of, like, why to be in the game and why to be out.
Yeah.
There is actually, and I'm taking some inspiration from, I forget his name. There's a guy who was in, like, the New York Mafia, who did, like, gasoline running. And he's talked any number of times publicly about working for the mob.
Hmm.
And, like, one of the commonly asked questions is like, "Do you miss it?" And he's like, "Oh, of course I do. I was getting paid like 20 grand a week."
Jeez.
Yeah, like the man was making money hand over fucking fist. He had all the drugs, all the hookers he could basically ever want. He's like, "Yeah, but most of my friends are dead." He's like,
Yeah.
"Basically all my friends I was in with that were in the mob are dead at this point.
Hmm.
I'm the only one out." And he like never goes to the same place twice. He does the trick all the time where like if he's sitting in a restaurant, who puts shades on the table backwards to as like a rear view mirror essentially. Like
Jesus.
he lives his life very very cautiously,
Yeah.
which is insane. But
Yeah.
like
Hard pass.
hearing him talk about it, like he's like people ask like, "Have you ever been part of a hit?" And he's like, "I've helped facilitate them." Like, I've done getaway driving and shit like that. It's just like, fuck me. He's just like, yeah, I can absolutely see why people do. Like, he doesn't talk this, like, tremendous disrespect or call people idiots. He's like, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely you do it for a reason. Because there's a crazy kind of camaraderie to it, and you have fucking power and money. Like,
Yeah.
you
What's
feel like,
not to love?
yeah, you feel like a god. Until you get shot. Like, you know. But he had 5 friends that he went in with, and they're all dead.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So, there's that.
There's this. You're reminding me of. I think it's from the first Ocean's 11 movie when he's talking about. They're talking about doing this robbery,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "You got to get out, and nobody's got to know you did it. Otherwise, they'll kill everybody you know, anybody you've ever loved, and then they'll go to work on you." It's just like, yeah, that's like the crux of like doing crime. Like that's the problem and the crux of doing crime. It's either it becomes your life or you need to be completely anonymous and untraceable. And it's definitely a very cool thing to focus on. Is the when when the perfect option doesn't work, where you just vanish into the night. What does your life look like?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like an awesome character study you're headed towards. I cannot wait to read it. That's rad, dude.
The guy's name is Michael Franzesi.
Oh, I think I saw like a video he did. Did he do like spell his last name?
Franzese.
Yeah, I think he did a couple of like he's done like yeah, he like did this thing for Insider where he rated mafia movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've seen some of his stuff. The guy's dope. That's I mean, it's sad but also like awesome that he's opening up about that because I think that is one of those things that like everybody wants the outcome or everybody wants the highlights but none of the lowlights when it comes to stuff like that. People look at, movies and videos and they're like, "Oh, that's so dope. They got that much money. Like, they've got that respect." Like, yeah, they've also got all of the problems. It's like
Yeah.
that life you have to pay the cost to be the boss, as James Brown said. It's like,
Oh my god. I'm sorry. I lowballed how much he was making by a huge margin.
yeah.
Guy was making $1 million a week
A week? Jesus.
for his gasoline bootlegging. Yeah.
Yeah.
$1 million.
Turns out crime does pay.
At the highlight of his career, he generated up to $8 million per week.
Good lord.
So yeah,
That's some freaking Pablo Escobar kind of shit.
that's some that's some yeah, that's
Before being
reassess
caught,
my values money.
Yeah. That'll make a man do crime.
Yeah.
Do you know how much like where Pablo was losing the majority, like how he was losing the majority of his money before he got like captured and capped?
No idea.
It was rats. He had so much money that he was like wrapping it up and stuff like that, and they were just like putting it places, but like rats were eating more of his money than the American government was seizing at one point. It's like, just wrap your head around the idea of that. Not even that, but just like, what?
Yeah.
And the American government was seizing a lot of money, but they weren't seizing more than rats were eating. It's like, what? That's a
crazy.
different kind of world problem that we could re-rationalize. It's so wild. Anyway, if I may,
Go for it.
the kind of pitch thing that I'm working, is taking up some mental bandwidth for me is this idea of so much of the time we see movies from the POV, like we were talking about, like video games, and like that's what you're trying to do with the movies. But this interesting idea popped in my head of what if we kind of went backwards. And
Hmm.
so much, there was something I was watching or whatever that it was helicopter footage, and then people who I think were in squad cars or whatever were talking. It was, what if we did a whole entire movie like that, like did like a crime thing or whatever. I'm not quite sure where this is going, but it's more like a top down, literally and figuratively, idea of making a movie where probably follows something along the lines of like a chase or cops or something like that, but it starts off in a helicopter and you're following it, and it showcases that it's a helicopter following it because there's a spotlight, and drug bust happens, car chase, whatever, and then we stay in that perspective,
Hmm.
but then we follow the cop home afterwards, just driving from the top down, driving his car, and it becomes almost kind of like a radio program where you have, instead of going in, we have to understand the circumstance just by the dialogue and the way it's being said and the timbre of the voice and the other sounds,
Hmm.
and to hear it instead of see it, and just really get into the circumstance and get into the perspective just from a auditory experience,
Yeah.
and really kind of take away this idea of imagery and ingest this idea of just sound and how it feels and how it sounds to the people on the other end of our lives and to the other end of the wire when it comes to like police tales and stuff like that, and kind of how scary it is to be detached from something and all you can do is hear it,
Hmm.
and how occasionally how thankful it is to be and how horrifying it is that you can't be a part of it, to stop it, to hear it, to see it, to be in any way involved. Not sure where this is going. I'm not sure how it's getting there, but it's an interesting process to kind of look at
Hmm.
the scape of it.
Neat.
Yes, thank you. You got a wreck this week, bro.
I do. It is a long one. It's no secret. I like Brandon Sanderson. He's a very good author. And I finished reading the book Way of Kings, which is the first book of his Stormlight archive. It's great. It's
Did it actually end well?
yes. I mean, it's not the end of his series, so
Fingers are still crossed.
but no, it has a very good build and conclusion, and it does a lot of setting characters up for their motivations at the end, why they go against where they started.
Mm.
And it's really good. It follows a bunch of different characters, and Sanderson consistently, his world building always top notch, top form, and this is no fucking departure from that. It's exquisite, and I think it's some of his best character writing. Even if one character I think is a little weaker, but it's more than made up for as you follow Kaladin. I think Kaladin is the best point of view in the whole fucking story. It's great. It's really good. It is very long. It is a 1,000-page book. But it's well worth the time to read it. Like, I just ended up sitting for about 3.5 hours yesterday reading the last, like, 250 pages, because I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to keep reading. I can't stop it. I
Yeah.
need to know how this ends. Yeah, absolutely
That's
superb.
awesome.
What about you? Something you would recommend to people?
I was, as we were looking over video games that, really changed us, that really brought us joy and were profound stories for us, I realized that somehow in all the recommendations I had, and we've talked about it a little here and there, just like, you talked about Way of Kings a couple episodes back,
Mm-hmm.
I unabashedly love Wreck-It Ralph. It is one of my favorite movies of all time, favorite animated movies of all time. It makes me laugh, it makes me cry, and it is just a great homage and appreciation for all those video games that we've spent time playing. Even if they are simple, there is a story there, and there are characters to live, to laugh, to love with, and it's just such a fantastic movie. John C. Riley and Sarah Silverman at their absolute best, just hamming it up and throwing haymakers. It is just the best. It has probably two of my favorite scenes of all time, maybe three of my favorite scenes of all time. Full stop. It's just a banger. Some of them are hilarious, and some of them make you cry, and some of them just make you
I am
feel.
I am not a bad guy. I
Yeah,
am a bad guy.
yeah.
That's
That means
okay.
I. Yeah, yeah. It's just, it's so good. I I don't think there's a bad circumstance in which to watch that movie. The more I think about it, it really is like timeless and not defined by its genre. While it is, I think it's like GPG. It's very much meant for kids.
Mm.
It doesn't remove being an adult and enjoying it from the aspect of it, and it's not so funny that you couldn't watch it if you're, you know, kind of not feeling like laughing, because there was a lot of great story to it and a lot of great development and a very bunch of just good messages. So I would recommend sitting down and watching Wreck-It Ralph and just having a moment. Or if you're not feeling like watching something, my friend Lucas, just based on Lucas's last name, I'm a bad friend. Lucas Scott Frank. Sorry, bud. Uh, my friend Lucas Scott Frank is popping off on Twitter, and I've just noted that I've never mentioned him on here, and he is amazing. He is the basically he is the band Storefront Church. Two words, no hyphen. Storefront and church. It is not, as I initially thought when looking at the band name, in any way a religious group. It's just him being rad. It's a very kind of melancholy, moody rock, just amazingness. I can't really say words. Uh, was really caught off guard by one of his older songs I hadn't heard this week, Redmouth.
Mm.
And if you're looking for a great album, I cannot recommend highly enough the album As We Pass. It was my first introduction to it, and it's still one of my favorites, and it really is just tremendous.
Mm.
So if you want something to just wallow in and let it move you, I would recommend checking out Storefront Church this week.
All right. I think that's going to be our episode. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and if you enjoyed it, please feel free to
Like,
comment,
share.
and subscribe.
Don't forget, though, new episodes of Super Pros Bros come out the first and third Saturday of every month. Bye.
Bye.